Have you ever wondered how a country, actually balances its books with the entire rest of the world? Today, we're diving deep into the balance of payments. Think of it as a country's financial report card. It tells us pretty much everything about its economic health and its relationship with other nations.
All right, so here's the plan. We're going to start with the basics, what the BOP actually is, then we'll zoom in on the current account, figure out what causes a deficit, look at the tools governments can use to fix it, and, this is the really important part, we'll evaluate those options. Let's jump in.
So this is the fundamental question, right? It gets to the very heart of international economics. And the answer is the balance of payments. It's the system that tracks every single pound, dollar, or euro that crosses the border, whether it's from a tourist buying a coffee or a massive company building a new factory. Let's see how it all works. Okay, so first up, what exactly is the balance of payments? It's not just a single number. It's more like a huge, detailed national ledger that tells the story of a country's financial life with everyone else.
Now, the key thing to get here is that this goes way beyond just physical goods crossing a border. It's a record of every single economic transaction. So you buying a phone made abroad? That's in there. A company investing in an office overseas? Yep, that's in there too. Even government aid payments, it all gets recorded.
The whole thing is broken down into three main sections. First, you've got the current account, which is all about the day-to-day flow of trade and income. Then there's the capital account. It's usually much smaller and deals with some pretty specific stuff like debt forgiveness. And finally, the big one, the financial account. This tracks all the buying and selling of assets. Think stocks, bonds, and crucially, foreign direct investment.
And this is a concept you absolutely have to understand. By accounting rules, the entire balance of payments must balance to zero. So think about it, if a country is spending more abroad than it's earning, that's a current account deficit. The money has to come from somewhere, right? It's financed by selling assets or borrowing from other countries. And that transaction shows up as a surplus on the financial account. They have to cancel each other out.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the current account. This is the part that you always hear about in the news, and it's what drives a lot of policy decisions. It really gives us the clearest snapshot of a country's day-to-day financial balance with the world.
So the current account itself has four parts. It's not just about the trade in goods, the visibles, like cars and food. It also includes the invisibles, services like tourism and banking. Then you've got primary income, which is money earned from investments abroad. And finally, secondary income, which are one-way payments like foreign aid or money sent home by workers abroad.
So what happens when the money flowing out consistently beats the money flowing in? Well, you get a current account deficit. Let's dig into the main reasons this kind of imbalance happens.
A deficit can pop up for a bunch of reasons. Maybe your domestic prices are rising too fast, making your exports too expensive for anyone else to buy. Or your currency could be too strong, which makes imports look like a total bargain. Sometimes it's even a sign of a booming economy. People have more money, so they spend more on imported goods. But it can also point to deeper, long-term structural problems, like low productivity or a shrinking manufacturing sector.
Now you might think there's an easy fix. Just make your currency cheaper, right? Well, it's not that simple. This is where the Marshall-Lerner condition comes in. It basically says that a cheaper currency will only work its magic if both your exports and imports are really sensitive to price changes. If they're not, if people are going to buy them anyway, you could actually make things worse by paying more for what you import while earning less for what you export.
This brings us to the famous J-curve effect. It's a classic pattern. Right after a currency's value falls, the deficit often gets worse before it gets better. Why? Well, in the short term, you're stuck with existing import contracts, so your import bill goes up immediately. It takes time for consumers and businesses to react and find alternatives. A great real-world example of this was the UK after the Brexit vote in 2016. The pound dropped sharply, but the trade deficit actually got bigger at first before it eventually started to shrink.
Okay, so we understand the causes and the complexities. What can a government actually do to fix a stubborn current account deficit? Let's open up the policy toolkit and see what's inside.
Broadly speaking, governments have two main approaches. The first is expenditure switching. The goal here is to get people to switch their spending away from imports and toward domestic goods, using tools like tariffs or a currency depreciation. The other approach is expenditure reducing. This is about slowing down the whole economy by raising taxes or interest rates, which reduces overall spending, including spending on imports.
Now, those other policies are really about managing demand. The real long-term fix is all about the supply side.
This means investing in things that make your country's industries fundamentally better, things like education, infrastructure, and technology. It's about becoming more competitive by improving quality and innovation, not just by being cheaper.
But here's the thing, no policy is perfect. For A-level analysis, the most important skill is being able to evaluate the trade-offs. Because almost every time you try to fix one problem, like a deficit, you risk creating another problem somewhere else.
Let's just walk through these trade-offs, because this is where the real analysis happens. Let your currency depreciate? Great, you might become more competitive. But the trade-off is often a spike in inflation, because all your imports just got more expensive. How about protectionism? Sure, it might save some domestic jobs, but you risk a trade war and higher prices for consumers. What about deflationary policy, hitting the brakes on the economy? That'll reduce import spending for sure, but the painful trade-off is almost always higher unemployment and slower growth. And those brilliant supply-side policies? They're the best long-term solution, but their trade-off is that they are incredibly slow and expensive with no quick fix.
And all of this brings us to one final really important question. We automatically assume a deficit is bad, right? It means you're living beyond your means. But what if that deficit is being financed by long-term foreign direct investment? If overseas companies are pouring money in to build factories, create jobs, and boost your economy's productive potential, well, in that case, couldn't a current account deficit actually be a sign of a dynamic, confident economy that global investors want to be a part of? It's definitely something to think about.